Hi everyone, my name's Linda Reed-Enever. I am the founder of Business, Business, Business. I'm a PR, marketing and ideas strategist, and I love sharing with you tips, knowledge and skills to help you grow your business. And welcome to another Business, Business, Business skills webinar. Megan has joined us for a number of skills webinars, and her first skills webinar with us was in 2018 when we just talked about automating. I know it makes us feel old now, doesn't it? Talked about automating your social media with Meet Edgar. Now, Meet Edgar is a tool that I use, and if you're in part of my marketing circle or anywhere like that, you'll hear me constantly say about the power of automation when it comes to your marketing and the power of scheduling so that we don't forget to do what we're going to do. Now, I'm pretty excited about this one because Edgar has released some functionality that will help us tap into the power of Pinterest for our marketing. And when we used to run the parenting hub called Family Capers, 40% of our traffic came from Pinterest. It came from recipes and craft and all of that stuff that we were putting together out there. So I know this platform has a huge amount of power to tap into. I know that we are not, as a group, tapping into the power as well as we should do. And I am keen, and that I'm going to be really honest, it comes down to the fact that we run 5 businesses in here. But if I can automate it, if I can work with it and I can schedule it and we can batch out amount of content, then I'm sure that we can have Pinterest playing within our areas of expertise and working with us over the next little while. Now, for those watching the live stream, I've put in a little link for you to be able to have a look and try out Meet Edgar. I'm going to pop it into the chat here as well. It is our partner link, and it basically gives us a little bit of street cred with Megan along the way, but it also allows you to be able to test and play along and have a go with Meet Edgar from there. And I just send it to all panelists rather than all panelists and attendees. So if you want to play along with us today, you can start. Meet Edgar has a 14-day trial, isn't it? Yep, 14-day trial, so you can jump in, you can play along with Megan and I as we have a chat today. Megan, welcome. It's so amazing to see you and so good to have you back.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here and discuss Pinterest with you guys and how to create a killer Pinterest strategy for your perfect pin plan today.
Beautiful.
So I mean, as we were talking, as Linda and I were just kind of chatting before we got started here, the biggest difference between Pinterest and other social networks is its ability to be a search engine. So that is the first mindset that I always like to have people go into when it comes to creating content for Pinterest, is that you don't want to be thinking social media strategies as much as you want to be thinking search engine strategies. So think about it in the most simplest terms. When you want to know something, you go to Google and you search what? Keywords. You search for some phrases, some things in there that are going to make sense for you and for what you need to learn from that content. Same thing on Pinterest. The biggest difference is the results they return to your search are going to be really graphically oriented. So it's going to be in a sense that when you go onto Pinterest, you'll see those pins show up, and the graphics with the text overlays are what's going to be returned to you. So it is a network that you truly want to think about how you can grab someone's attention through your keywords and through really awesome creation of graphics that explain exactly what you do and who you are for. So those are the first 2 questions that every single business owner should have answered for any single social network that you're on. What do you do and who you're there for? And how can you make that abundantly clear with the nature of that network? And for Pinterest, that's going to be searchability.
Yep.
Cool. So as we're going along here, I also want to point out the fact that Pinterest is a place that they really want you to create evergreen content, which is awesome for me, Edgar, because that is the type of content we always make sure that you're creating, that type of stuff that's timelessly valuable for you to put out there, and make sure that it's going to offer value to your followers no matter what time of year they find it at. And that, again, is because if someone goes onto Pinterest and searches a term that you are an expert in and your content is served up to them, people are going to be able to say, okay, great, I'd like to learn from this, click through and actually visit the content that you've put out there. So again, this is a little different from Pinterest being able to drive a lot more traffic than sites like Facebook, because Facebook, that algorithm does not love it when you take people from Facebook and bring them to your site every single post you put out there. Facebook wants to keep you within their platform. Pinterest is a little bit different. They are set up in a way that they want people to discover something that they can actually create. So when you actually send someone from Pinterest to your site, you're not penalized for it. Pinterest actually loves to see this because they see that they have actually done their job when people click through on a pin and actually consume your content. So again, it is the best traffic driving place that you can make sure your evergreen content gets searched for. And something you pinned, say 2 years ago, could actually result in someone's search that they did today, and you can still get traffic from that. So it's working smarter on Pinterest. And it's also understanding kind of what is involved in what type of content Pinterest is looking for.
Yep.
And that is always new content, like any social network. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and show you a couple of things here.
While you get that ready, I'm just going to do an explainer on evergreen content for those who are new,
Awesome.
who maybe don't understand what evergreen content is, because I talk about it all the time, you talk about it all the time, and we could talk about evergreen content until the cows come home. But evergreen content, guys, is content that can be used again and again. And I like, for the first of you going, what the hell am I going to be talking about? Look at your how-tos, look at your tips, look at all of those particular strategies when it comes to sharing your knowledge and your expertise. And the power of evergreen content in our marketing, and I've seen this inside our group and multiple groups. Oh, I can get so quiet on social media because I get busy. The best thing about evergreen marketing is when you're busy, it keeps marketing for you. And that's where the power of this stuff comes in. And that is, for those of you who continue to ask me, how do we do what we do and run multiple businesses and have our content out there, is because we do evergreen marketing pretty damn well. And we use tools like Edgar to make sure that we tap into the power of that.
Awesome. Yeah, I am so glad you just kind of drove that point home, because it's true. It's promoting something that you wrote multiple times. So you're working smarter and not harder. For Pinterest specifically, they do love this type of content. However, they do have a term of service that they do not want you to share the exact same pin on Pinterest more than 5 times in a month. So I know that sounds kind of crazy, but there's a lot of Pinterest influencers out there who will offer advice up about, posting like 50 pins a day on Pinterest. And this, again, is interesting advice if you're only familiar with other social networks, where a strategy like that would probably get you locked in Facebook jail if you put 50 posts on your Facebook group in a day. Pinterest doesn't do that, but they do make sure that you're not promoting the same exact pin more than 5 times in a month. If you use a software like Edgar, we have everything set up that makes sure you're not allowing that to happen. So we'll keep track of that for you. However, we want you to make sure that you're also creating pins that can send out for that same content. And Pinterest sees a brand new pin as a new graphic. So you could share the same destination link and the same description in your pin as long as it has a new graphic, and Pinterest sees that as a brand new pin. So the first strategy I really want you to create is a checklist for every piece of pillar content you have. Pillar content's just like a blog post, a podcast. What did you spend so much time researching that you can then take that pillar piece of content and make sure every single time you create a blog post, you're creating 5 to 10 different graphics that can be used for Pinterest. So this is an example of what we do here at Edgar. These are all of our different pins that we create in Canva for one of our newest blog posts. And if you just batch doing this right away, it becomes such an easy process of making sure that you can just get all of this into your scheduling tool and have it set out to go out in a system. The bonus here of doing this is you also never know what's going to catch someone's eye a little bit differently. So you can do a little bit of that A/B testing and make sure that you're getting the best graphics going. Graphics on Pinterest, I definitely recommend using templates, like I mentioned before, with tools like Canva, because they're already pre-sized for you. If you don't use pre-sized graphics, just know the nature of Pinterest graphics is vertical. And you want to make sure you follow this nature so that you're taking up the appropriate amount of real estate in people's smart feeds when they're scrolling through, so that your images really stand out there.
Megan, are you guys, as a marketing strategist and a PR person, I would be saying, as you go through Canva and you find your templates, you're saving them as a group of templates, and almost the 5 images for each blog post, and then, or 5 or 6 different styles for each blog post. And then each time we're doing our tasks, and for those of you who are using Trello or ClickUp or a planning board like that, putting it into your tasks and linking it and opening it up so that you can go, okay, cool. Well, so for example, I can see 4 graphics on my screen right now. So you then change the text over, maybe change the photos, and then you've got those 4 templates consistently. Plus, it's going to be brand consistency too for you in making those pins.
You nailed it. You always want to look for ways to make sure you're not recreating the wheel every time. And as Linda mentioned, brand consistency is huge. So if someone consumed one of your pins and they then see a pin that has the same color and same branding, and they liked the previous one, they're be more likely to consume your future pins. And you can see how this works too with this example here. Melissa Griffin is a content creator that has a course on Pinterest, and she does some amazing things with exactly what Linda was saying here. You can see almost every single pin that she has. This is just a screenshot from her Pinterest account, is super branded and super similar. You can see this kind of diagonal yellow line here. She's not recreating the wheel every time. She's just putting in a new title and a couple of new graphics that way. So absolutely look for ways that you don't have to recreate the wheel. And that's totally fine because again, everyone is not seeing every pin you put out there on Pinterest. So no one's going to say, oh my gosh, that looks exactly the same, because it is much more of a search engine.
Yep.
Another thing that I really would love for you to take into account is the ability to put text overlays on the graphics you're creating. Because again, if Pinterest returns a search result and it's just a photo, it's hard for people to get an understanding if they actually want to consume that content. One of the best ways to increase your conversions and click-through rates on Pinterest is to make sure that those text overlays have a very clear call to action. So this one here, I absolutely love how she has this arrow pointing to exactly what you're going to get. And this is obviously what is referred to as a lead magnet. So a lead magnet is any piece of really helpful content that you can create that you're exchanging for someone's email address to start building up your email list from social media. The reason this is so important is because social media should be a place where you're offering value and service, while your email list is a lot easier to sell to. It is a lot easier of a place that you don't have to think about, offering only value, and you can nurture people a little bit stronger there. So you always want to make sure you're taking people from social media and converting them to your email list, and Pinterest is a killer place to do this. So this here is something that you can do incredibly easy. Again, you don't have to be a graphic designer. There are so many elements in tools like Canva that you can create these little arrows that are pointing to exactly what someone's going to get. Because who's going to actually want to go ahead and read something without knowing that it's going to help teach them something to really reach their desired outcome. So I really recommend thinking about the calls to action that you can go ahead and put on your posts. Another example here is just making sure that you're being super duper clear in the language you're using and forgetting about graphics altogether. You can see this is a pin that she went ahead and created for her Pinterest account here, and it is abundantly clear. The more clear you are in the language you're using in these text overlays, the more click-through rates people do see. And this is because a confused mind is just going to go ahead and skip over things. We don't pay attention to things we're confused about because we are bombarded with about 400 marketing messages every single day. So help your followers out a little bit, make sure it's super clear, and help them decide if they want to click through on it or not. And these things truly are super important. Because Pinterest is such a traffic driving place, I really want you to make sure you're not missing out on the opportunities that you can market different types of content onto Pinterest. So we have actually seen incredible traffic from our podcast here at Edgar. So we have a podcast called Social Post. And the way that we're actually using this on Pinterest is we interview people, and then we actually get that podcast transcribed, and we get pull quotes from the people that we interviewed, and we put them on our pins. So this here is a pin that we created for our company. And every time we do this for one of our podcast episodes and we have one of these quotes, we see a bump in our traffic. So we go ahead and we make these quotes, and we go ahead and repurpose a podcast interview onto our blog. We go ahead and get these pull quotes onto a pin, and these drive some of the most amount of traffic to our blog. Quotes on social media are golden. So this doesn't have to be something you do if you aren't someone who like interviews people. Just look for ways that you already have that written content that you can make graphics like this to increase your conversion and your click-through rate on Pinterest. So you can see we do this every single time that we have a podcast, and it's just simply, again, going ahead and getting those pull quotes, creating graphics, and then people can click through on this and be introduced to our blog. So it's great brand awareness and brand building content out there on social media.
Now, for those using, my brain function, for those using your headliner, this is a great way of taking your little headliner videos, and because you can pin videos to Pinterest as well. So taking those small little videos and putting them up and using those headliner videos where you're taking the little segments and all of that sort of stuff. And I will grab the link for headliner for everyone's going, what the hell is she talking about here? Headliner takes snippets, and it takes audio snippets of your podcast, and so it's listenable, and then they can get that little sneak peek in Pinterest, and then they can go listen to the rest of the podcast, and you can put your text over images and all of that sort of stuff. Megan, I don't know if you share this tip, but I want to share a tip with everyone who's looking at is going, how am I going to get the quotes? How am I going to get them transcribed? On a podcast, you got transcription. On your blog, when you add your blog into Meet Edgar, you've got the opportunity to generate 5 variations. When you're generating those 5 or so variations, look at those quotes, because they become the images and the stuff that you can create for Pinterest graphics down the track.
Yeah, that is a great pro tip there. So our auto variations feature does use a ability to pull those pull quotes from your blog already. If you have only audio, we use a program called Rev, and they go ahead and transcribe like our audio into that as well. So yeah, definitely look for tools to help do that for you. I completely agree. And I'm so glad you mentioned video on Pinterest, because we're actually partners with Pinterest, which means their team works with us to try to make sure that we're offering the best advice possible to our community. And one of the things that they've brought up on almost every call we've been on is that Pinterest is really trying to get a lot more people to have video content on Pinterest. So whenever you hear a social network say that they want people to adopt a feature, you know that their algorithm is going to be feeding up a lot more visibility to that type of content. Okay. So video on Pinterest doesn't have to be complicated either. You know, there's a lot of stock videos, even within sites that you can find, and just download a little kind of clip and upload it to like a template in Canva. One of my favorite tricks for video content on Pinterest is actually using like these graphics in Canva that are just the stickers. So the stickers in Canva can be like an arrow pointing or like little flashing graphics. And if you download that from your Canva account, then it's actually downloaded as a video that's 5 seconds long, which is awesome because Pinterest requires your videos to be between 4 seconds and 15 minutes. So you can do something as simple as that to take advantage of having video content on Pinterest.
Fantastic. Guys, I have if you have yet to try Rev, we're a Rev partner as well. We actually have referral links for Rev going through, which will give you a $10 coupon to get started. So if you've got a podcast episode or a video or something that you want to be pinning, $10 will get, so that's 10 minutes. Well, no, it's a little bit more, a little bit less. It's $1.25 a minute now US, but $10 US will get you a fair amount of time in being able to transcribe your content. So we'll get started.
Awesome.
Yeah, beautiful. I'll grab that link for you guys as well.
So good. Awesome. And if you are just getting started on Pinterest, one of the things I always like to recommend is getting ideas from people outside of your industry, because I find if we are just looking at like content creators within our eating industry, it can sometimes be a little overwhelming. So one of the brands that I was looking at when I was just developing our Pinterest strategy was Brita, like the filters that you use for water, because I think their Pinterest account is actually pretty brilliant, because that's a pretty dull thing to go ahead and market online on social media. It's just a filter. However, you can see how they do it here in ways that they're thinking about what people would be searching for. So lists about, hey, I'm going off to college. What should I get for my college dorm? You can see one of their pins specifically calls that out. So thinking about who's on Pinterest, what they're searching for, and how these pins can actually show up in a way that is going to really want people to click through. You also, again, don't want to have to recreate the wheel in every sort of value adding post that you're making here. So Brita does another really cool campaign where they compare how much sugar is in a drink versus just drinking water, which obviously if you drink more water, you're going to need their product more. But you can see here, this is one of their pins that they took a graphic and just compared it to something that's super entertaining, actually. But in the description of their pin, all they say is sugary drinks add up faster than you can think. And then if you start looking at every single one of these that they do, the description is exactly the same. So they're using this strategy. Their description just says sugary drinks add up faster than you can think. And they're thinking of other ways that this one campaign that they've dreamed up can have a different graphic for. So I think that this is absolutely brilliant. You're not having to create a brand new description. You're just creating brand new comparisons like this. And I think anyone in any industry can probably do that. You know, we have a list here at Meet Edgar, since we're a social media automation tool, how Edgar compares to spending how much time you can save on social media and then like what you could do with that time. So this could be something that we could take into this concept that Brita did. You know, it's like spending XYZ amount of time, you know, that's like saving XYZ amount of money and just doing that comparison. So I think that every single brand has something that they could do this with and not have to overcomplicate things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing I always like to think about when it comes to social media is remembering the mission that each and every network has is pretty important when you're creating content for it. So Pinterest has a future-oriented mission for people who are consuming their content. They say our mission is to help people discover things they love and do those things in real life. So when you're thinking about who's on Pinterest, you want to make sure you're not thinking that they're there to waste time in the way that they might be on Facebook. If they're waiting in line at the grocery store, they might pull out their phone and get onto Facebook to scroll through to connect with what their family and friends are doing. On Pinterest, people are thinking about their future self and what projects they want to accomplish, what goals they want to reach. So that should be the type of content that you're creating for people, for that future self of who they want to be. So make a list of what your ideal audience is, what goals they have, who they want to be, and then how your pins can actually get them closer to that goal. And it really becomes you thinking about outcomes rather than features. So this is just a marketing tip in general, and we want to use it kind of on anything. But, you know, if you break it down to something simple, you know, it's not like, hey, come buy our pizza cutter. Rather, it's, hey, see how our pizza cutter can make your life better by X, Y, Z. So focus on those benefits, not just the feature that the pizza cutter is sharp, right? So those are, again, the things that you need to kind of tweak slightly in your message to make sure that your content out there is really grabbing people's eye in a way that they're excited to consume it and excited to purchase from you.
And for those who are watching and listening to, and especially those who follow me most of the time, this is the difference between selling and educating your market. If you educate your market on how the pizza cutter is better, they're once again a more informed client. They have some knowledge about how to use the pizza cutter. They don't get it out of the box, run it over their hand to test how sharp it is. And believe me, there are warnings on these things for a reason because people have done that. Just have a look at your toaster if you need to understand why there are warnings on things. But you are getting a better educated client. Now, I am talking, you know, ridiculously stupid here, people getting it out. But if you educate your clients and your marketing message educates your client, rather than just buy our cutter because it's sharp, then you've got an informed user on how to use your product or service.
Yeah, I love how you phrase that. That makes a lot of sense. Cool. So other things about Pinterest are that it is based on boards. So when you actually go and you post a pin, it goes to a certain board. And you want to think about your boards kind of like your categories, the types of content that you can put out there. One of the things that I'm going to really recommend you do in your boards is not just name them broad categories though, but it's to think about, again, the search engine ability of everything on Pinterest in a way to make sure that even your board names, when you create them, have keywords. Because your boards and your pins are all being searched by the Pinterest algorithm when someone does a search, and you want to make sure your boards show up as well. So when you're naming your boards and creating them, I, for example, wouldn't just create a board called blogs, because I probably won't show up in relevant searches if someone's just searching a blog. So I want to think about what are some of the keywords I can put in here that would make sure that what my ideal client is searching for is what they'll find. So I want to make sure that I use long tail keywords and specificity when I'm naming my boards. So I want to make sure it's social media marketing blogs, not just blogs. You want to make sure that it's social media marketing tips, not just tips, because those keywords are what the algorithm is searching for to show those results to people. So make sure that you're really making a list of some of the words that you could add into your boards and your descriptions. One of my favorite tips for doing this is jumping onto Pinterest yourself and just typing in a word that has to do with your industry and your niche. For example, here at Meet Edgar, I would go on there and I would just type in maybe social media. That little drop-down menu on Pinterest in their search bar is going to show you the top searches that have to do with those words. So what people are already searching is available for you. So do that research. Go onto Pinterest and see the words that people are already searching the most and incorporate and adopt those words into your own boards, into your own descriptions and all of that stuff. Again, just to make sure that you're already using the research that Pinterest is providing you and not reinventing the wheel. So I think that this
optimized for search.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah. And, I always recommend on Pinterest too, that you have a best of board to make sure that people who would go to your actual account and are looking at your board can just go there if they don't feel like kind of doing that search. So that could be another board that you create. There's no right answer on the amount of boards that you put out there or the amount of pins that you do in a day. The only right answer I'm going to give you is consistency. So if you feel like you can pin twice a day onto 3 different boards, start there. Don't get overwhelmed with the fact that there's a lot of people out there who do pin 50 times a day and see their traffic spike incredible amounts the more pins they put out there. Because if you do this and you burn yourself out for 2 days, that's not going to serve as much as just doing 2 pins a day consistently for the whole year. So make sure that you are really setting yourself up for success in that manner.
Megan, I think, when we talk about this and we spoke, you touched on it originally, when we start on a new platform, if you bombard that platform, if you over pin or you overdo things, that's when you will trigger them to be looking at your account. So anything of overuse, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Pinterest, whether it's Instagram, whether it's YouTube, it's going to trigger them to have a bit of a look and go, okay, well, should we be serving up this content or is it spam? And I'm just going to call it out. Is it spam? So not only do we not want to overwhelm ourselves, but we do not want to flood our content. And if you flood Pinterest or you flood any platform with a bucket load of pins, then you're going to overwhelm those audiences and those people that are following you just the same as you're overwhelming yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. 100%. So when you're thinking about your boards and what types of pins you can create as well, I want you to remember the idea of curated content is being really important on any social network because it's a sign of respect to your followers, really, that you're going to serve them up the best content, no matter where it comes from. But Pinterest specifically as well, you don't want to have it as one huge advertisement. You want to make sure that you're pinning things that have to do maybe with your industry or your niche. So for example, if you're like a wedding photographer, you could have a board that has to do with like wedding dresses. And you can curate content in other people's pins about finding your best wedding dress. It doesn't have to do with what you're doing, but your ideal client who's searching for a wedding photographer is also probably searching for a wedding dress. So think of those things that you can actually create as lifestyle boards and start curating content onto it, because this is going to be huge for brand awareness. Another thing to think about here is that you can also do things on Pinterest called group boards. So group boards are going to be obvious to you if they are a group board or not, because in the lower left corner of a group board, you'll see a circle, and that circle will be divided with a few people's faces in it, signaling that it is a group board. The reason that you might consider joining group boards in your industry is because you'll get a lot more eyes on that. Group boards can have a ton of members. And if you go out there and you actually pin your blog post to a group board, everyone in that group board and all of their audience who knows that group board exists are more likely to see your pin there. So do things like search out those group boards. While you're searching them out, asking to join sometimes has a few different things, just as if you were asking to join a Facebook group on things you have to kind of like rules you have to follow. So make sure it matches what you're doing there. But it is a great way to drive more traffic and to get brand awareness if you think about those two things with Pinterest, that it is not just a place where you're yelling your advertisements at people, you're curating content and you're joining group boards to have that discussion and engagement. And the other example that I love here is thinking about things that you can do and create that has to do with your product, but it's not really just selling your product. I think Whole Foods does an awesome job with this on Pinterest. They have a recipes board, obviously, because they sell food. If they're showing you how to use that food and they're educating you on a recipe and a lifestyle that you can create, you're going to be more likely to aspire to be the type of person that buys those ingredients to create that 30-minute recipe for your family or whatever. So again, it's thinking about the content that can support someone's life so that they're really excited about consuming it. Now, again, Pinterest is a search engine, so the time of day that you're pinning is not as important as it is on other social networks. However, I know guidance is always really helpful. So Pinterest goes ahead and says their most traffic time, so when the most people are on Pinterest, is Saturday mornings, Friday after 3 p.m., and weekdays after 8 p.m. So if you're just developing a strategy, these would be great places to start. It's not as important because you're playing the long game. Your posts have a slower burn because they will keep showing up in searches. But again, great place to start here. And it makes sense when you think again about the nature of Pinterest, that people are there on the weekends and after work when they actually have time to think about the projects they want to do. So you also really want to think about making sure that you're thinking about your specific audience. So perhaps your specific audience might have to work at night or something like that. So always take the social media golden rule of tailoring things to when you think your specific followers are looking for inspiration there. And you definitely want to make sure that you're always auditing and looking for things that are confusing your followers to create really great lead magnets that are going to help get them a result for free so that when they come back to your site, they're super excited about actually consuming that content. Because if you can get someone an outcome for free, they are much more likely to trust you, and trust is everything when it comes to buying on social media. So again, Pinterest is an awesome search engine, and I cannot wait for you guys to start trying it out and using SEO techniques as well as graphics that are really eye-catching with text overlays. Don't overcomplicate it, as Linda said. If you can set something up that just recreates those templates for every piece of content that you're creating, you'll find the system is a lot more enjoyable than if you just leave Pinterest to do something when you have time.
Have time bit. That's an interesting concept.
When we just leave social media for when we have time, we so often that just means we're not going to do it.
Yeah. And look, guys, for those of you who are new to me and are new to Megan, you'll hear me talk about this all the time as you get to know me. The thing about running our businesses is if we don't market it, then we can't expect people to come to it. And if we get busy and we don't market, what we do now, and even especially with Pinterest, because we are talking about a long burn cycle, what we do now in our marketing will reflect in 3 months' time in our business, in 3 to 6 months' time. So, COVID, bearing in mind we've had COVID and COVID just screwed everything up. Let's focus on 2021, shall we? We're all turning, Megan, I figure 2021 means we all turn 21 again, and we can just go out and create whatever we would like within our.
I love that. Yes, I am right there with you.
Yeah, so let's just all 10-21 again and get our messaging right and get our tools and our consistency right. What Megan has shown us there, and I'm hoping we're going to delve into the world of Meet Edgar in a minute and see how it works actually from the Edgar point of view. What Megan has shown us there is if we did nothing more out of this webinar than started to look at scheduling and making sure that we had a pin go live maybe between 8 and 9 or 8 and 10 each weeknight, we had one go live on a Saturday, and we did that. So you don't even have to look at doing more than one pin. Just look at that consistently. Okay, cool. I've got that under control. Okay, well, let's have a look at my Pinterest insights then, and go to the boards and go to the insights, and then start to look at when your audience is online. Okay, well, they seem to be online at 11 a.m. Okay, well, the next batch of weekly pins that I'm going to commit to getting out will go out at 11 a.m. Once again, like everything, it's about training the algorithm and training your audience to when you are going to turn up. So bring in one time slot at a time that you can cope with.
Yeah, I love how simple you make that sound, for sure. Yeah, so I would love just to dive into how a system like Me, Edgar, can help you set this up even more if you haven't used a social media automation tool before. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen real quick again here.
So this is a link in for everyone again if anyone wants to play along.
Awesome. So this is what our application looks like. And again, you can do the things that we do in here just using like a spreadsheet system. And we know that because our founder, Laura, actually did this with spreadsheets until she was like, this is ridiculous. There's got to be a better way. So if you don't want to use a scheduling tool quite yet, at least set yourself up a system where you can make sure that you're following these evergreen posting scheduling. So you're not recreating the wheel every time. But if you do use a system to make sure that this is going out on a basis that keeps you consistent, this is what our tool is really made for. So when I click to add new content to my Meet Edgar account here, this is what our composer screen looks like. Over here on the left is where I'm telling Edgar exactly where to send the content that I'm creating. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and click off that I'd like to send this to Pinterest. On Pinterest, again, we have boards. So we have a drop-down menu for your boards, and you just select what board you'd like to send this post to right here. You then go ahead and put this into a category. So the categories in Edgar are set up to make sure you get the appropriate amount of ratio of value adding posts versus promotional posts. The thing that we see work really well is just keeping it simple to that 80-20 rule that you hear so often in everything in life. And that is just 80% of your content is value adding content, 20% is a little more promotional. So I can go ahead and create categories. In this case, I've created a blog post pins category here. I'm then going to write my description in this area. So again, the description of a pin is just that blurb that's going to set people's expectations about what they're going to consume if they choose to click through on that pin and be directed to your site. So this is a really great opportunity for you to get pull quotes from the article, or just to write a little story about why you wrote a post or what people are going to actually learn there. A really good thing to do in these is if you do have like numbers that you can give people, like, hey, my 5 tips in order to create a better blog post or something like that. If you can put numbers in there, it really does increase your conversions, because people will be like, well, okay, there's 5 tips here. I must be able to use at least one of them. So look for ways that you can really get inside people's heads in a way of showing them why they should actually click through. I'm going to go ahead and grab a blog post here for this example.
Don't forget to go vote.
So true. Thank you. Thank you. And then right here, you notice if I put a blog URL into this description section, it's automatically copied down to this section here. So what this section here is you'll see it says destination link. So this is the link you're sending people to if they click through on your pin. So once this is in here, I can delete this and I can go ahead and just write my description, check out blog. Of course, you'll write something better than that. Pin title. So the title of your pin is going to be the larger text that Pinterest has. If you leave this blank in Meet Edgar, what happens is the title of your blog post or the title of the destination link here will just automatically be added. So if you'd like to override that title or test out different titles, you can go ahead and populate this pin title section here, and that will override the normal title of your blog. Then for Pinterest, you have to upload a photo or a video. Again, we definitely recommend creating them in the sizing that is going to be appropriate for each network in Canva. And then you can just click on this little icon right here to upload it into Meet Edgar from your computer. Or if you want to take the really fast route, you'll notice if I have a URL in here, I have something called suggested media pop up. And all of these images are actually just being pulled from within the blog post. So these are all images that we have in this blog post. If I just want to add this image as an image here, I can click add, and that'll be a static image. Now, it's not going to be sized appropriately in the vertical 2:3 ratio that Pinterest recommends, but it will post as a square image there. It will show up on Pinterest just fine. So if you're in a huge hurry, that is a huge time saver Meet Edgar allows you to do. Now, if you remember, Meet Edgar does have a variations feature that Linda was talking about. So our variations feature here will allow you to easily add those 5 graphics that I was talking about having created for each and every individual post you have into this one post. So if I click to add a variation here, you'll notice that I get a second text box. Again, for Pinterest, I don't have to write a different description. I could just copy and paste this description if I wanted to down to my second variation here, and then just attach a different photo, either from my computer or from this little suggested media. So each of these variations then will have a different photo. You can still send people to that same link. Linda was also mentioning our auto-generate variations. So I want to show you how that works real quick as well. If I put the link into, oops, gotta grab that link. If I put a URL into this section here, rather than manually adding those, I can click suggest variations, and Edgar's actually going to get pull quotes from within that article and write them for you. So these could all be your descriptions on Pinterest. Edgar has already created them for you. So all you need to do is click into each variation and upload an appropriate graphic to go along with it, and go ahead and save that content to your Meet Edgar library. Edgar will go ahead and store all of that content in the library. The library in Edgar, I just kind of like to describe it as a catalog of your posts. Everything just remains in your library here. Yep. You're then going to tell Edgar when to send it out on your schedule. So on your schedule here, we do things on an evergreen fashion in the sense that we're going to go ahead and create posts that are going to go out from the library in a last in, first out rotation. So you can see here, I went ahead and created this time slot. I went ahead and assigned this time slot to my blog post pins. I assigned it to my Pinterest account, and I saved it. Now, when Edgar is going along here and this time comes up, Edgar is going to go ahead and say, okay, I need to pull the most recent post that was added to the blog post pin category in the library and send it out to Pinterest, because Pinterest is attached here. He'll then take that whole post and put it to the end of the line in that category. The next time this category comes up, he'll send the next update out, put it to the end of the line in that category, and move along. So Edgar is actually working his way through each and every post that you've added to that category, or each and every pin in this sense here. Once he reaches the bottom and there are no new pins within that category, Edgar will start from the top again and start resurfacing your older pins. So this is, again, really great for making sure that you're continuously getting that content out there. Your variations are going to go out in a last in, first out order as well. So if your content that you added has variations on it, the last variation you added to that piece of content will go out first. Then that whole piece of content gets put to the end of the line. The next time that whole piece of content comes up, the next variation will send out. Yeah. So those variations aren't going to send out back to back. I just like to throw that out there because sometimes that can get a bit confusing.
Sometimes it gets confusing. Hey, there's a really cool tip in amongst all of this, especially if you're content batching too, and you maybe want to do things a bit differently. And you showed me this a long time ago. In the categories, we might need your screen up. the category shuffle feature.
Ah, yes, great one. So in your categories right here, so Edgar will send that out in a last in, first out order. If you've assigned the permissions to the post that you've added to the library, exactly the same as you've assigned the permissions to those time slots on your schedule, Edgar will go ahead and send the exact same content to each of those networks. Yep. If you're someone who knows that your community checks your social media accounts, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, they check them probably every day, and you'd like to show them different content on each platform, you'll come to your categories tab right here, and you'll notice each of these categories has a little double-crossed arrow in the upper right corner. If you click on this double-crossed arrow, it shuffles the category, which means when Edgar hits that time slot on your schedule, if it's assigned to multiple social media accounts, he will choose a different post from that category within the library to send out to each of those accounts. So totally up to you if you're someone who likes to send the same content to all your accounts, or if you know your community checks all your social media all the time, it might be great to shuffle those categories.
I'm a big fan of the shuffling of the categories.
Nice. I could see that. You have such an engaged community. That would make a lot of sense.
Look, and for us, because we run multiple Facebook groups, guys, we don't want the same post going out to Facebook in the Facebook groups. And even if it's the same time or the same week, we want to shuffle it up in differently. It might go out Tuesday on the Course Creator Circle, for example, and it might go into BBB, or it might go into the Marketing Circle on another day of the week. So it is all about making sure that content is delivered in a way so it doesn't go, oh man, did they have nothing else to say? Because that's the reality of it. And that's where Edgar, and Megan, I don't know, I can't even remember. We've gone back, we've used Edgar, we've gone and used other tools, we've come back and used Edgar. The biggest thing about Edgar, and the biggest advantage that you have right here, guys, is the time that you get back, okay? So bearing in mind, you've created that pin with 5 graphics, okay? And say you came to the blogging retreat or the content creation workshop with me, and we just created a whole heap of content, because that's what we do. But we've created a whole heap of content, and you've batched, and batching is a big one. And I know Edgar themselves run content batching parties that you can attend online. So, feel free to jump into one of those. But if you've batched that content, if you're quiet, if COVID's, shoved a knife into your business right now and you're quiet, and this is the time to batch out a massive amount of content, load it into something like Edgar, so that when your business comes back and you're busy, there is no quiet on social media. It's like, wow, these guys are busy and they're still sharing their education with us, and they're still informing us, and they're still sharing their knowledge and their expertise with us. And for those who are Course Creator Circle members with me, this is how you continually drive people to your lead magnets. You're using your evergreen content, whether you're Course Creator Circles or Marketing Circle members or whatever you are. It's about, when we've talked about lead magnets and nurture sequences and why it's important to set them up and educate and give multiple points of contact, one pin. Now, I saw that Megan had that also going out to Instagram, by the way. You had your pins going out to Insta as well. That one pin, that one long graphic, could go out to Facebook as well. It could go out to Instagram. It could go out to a number of different spaces within your area. Just because it's a pin doesn't stop it from going out to other platforms when you're putting that content out. And just be aware of it. Just go, well, what else can I do?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. The more you can amplify a message easily, the better. And I feel like so many people always think you have to have a perfect presence on each network, when really what we suggest doing is conquering one network and then moving on to the next. But you still probably want to keep your feeds fed. So go ahead and make your content in the nature of the network people engage with you the most. For us, that's Twitter, actually. Our community engages with us on Twitter the most. So we write a lot of our content in that 280 character limit, but we still amplify it out to Facebook. We still send it to Instagram in that way. So you don't have to, like Linda said, overcomplicate things. Make sure you're conquering one, and then you can move on and look how you can customize it. And I also completely agree about the batching. One of the reasons that we love how we do categories on Edgar is because it allows you to do batching math. So what batching math on social media is developing a plan for how many posts you want to send out for the month. So for example, if you identify that you'd like to send out 6 posts a day, 5 days a week, that's going to be 120 posts a month. And that sounds a little overwhelming, but when you break it down into categories, let's say you use 6 categories like quotes, tips, blog posts, etc., that would only have to be creating 20 posts per category per month, which makes it sound a lot more doable to maybe sit down on Monday and knock out that quotes category 20 posts. Sit down on Tuesday, knock out all of your tips category for that month. And it makes it such a system that, again, content creation doesn't feel like you're just on this treadmill and you can never get off of it, but you have an exact plan with numbers involved. I'm not even a numbers person, but I love it. It does change your life when you can have that plan set out.
Okay. So guys, I'm going to throw it over to you. Has anyone got any questions for us about Pinterest, about Meet Edgar, about marketing in general? You've got 2 marketing heads sitting here with you, having a chat, and all of those sorts of things. I'm going to share some strategies that we're going to employ on Pinterest right now, and it's come, and I've actually literally boarded things around over that period of time. As a group, we run multiple websites. As an area, we look through different things. Now I have the Talk podcast. We have the Course Creators Circle membership with me. We have our marketing membership. We have, I didn't know, yes, it does. Yes. We might show the Insta feature, and Renee says she'd know Edgar's scheduled to Instagram. We'll have a show of that one as well. And we've got the business site, we've got Clive's site, and then we've got our Enever Group brand. So I've sit here and I've played around this morning. I'm going, how are we going to do this? How are we going to put the boards out? And I've put in the decision point that the ones I lead, so media connections in particular, the Course Creators Circle, and my marketing tips and my expertise inside that space will go under my personal brand board. So they'll go under my business brand board. And that's because how many Pinterest profiles do I really want to keep? I'm going to be really honest. And there's crossover between most of those sections. So, when we're talking about media or PR, or we're talking about course creation or marketing our business and educating our market, there's lots of crossover. Clive stuff will be under a Clive strategy board. A BBB will have its own area because, how huge are we? Things like the webinar, when we come off the webinar with Megan, we'll make a series of 5 pins for replay. And we'll do part of that process when it comes to batching out our content. What we will do throughout this area, and then I've just got to make a decision of whether I want to have an agency board or not, and whether we want the Enever Group to have a board and series of tips where everything comes together for business owners under one. And we most probably will. So I'm sorry, Beck, I'm just giving you advance warning that we're likely to run out. But I did cut 2 out because I was going to have one for media connections in the Course Creators Circle. But looking at from there, it's about looking at where we're going to put our words, where we're going to put our strategies, where we're going to put our key information throughout that process. So when you get off this webinar, please don't be overwhelmed. What I want you to do is sit down and write out what are the boards? What are the key things that I know for? If you run multiple businesses, can they fit under a personal brand board? Need to be put out under their own brands, because that's definitely something that you can consider. And there's no reason that you can't pin stuff from one site to another site. You can't do different pins. You just got to keep them on brand. And then the other thing is to work out your knowledge and your expertise. So do you have a blog? Okay, you got a blog. You got a blog post going a week? Create 5 pins for it. Do you have podcast? How often does your podcast come out? There's going to be, even if it's just you talking, there's going to be really good tips out of those podcasts, and Rev will be able to grab those graphics for you, or Quick's another one that can get the information out of it. Create those quotes, create those pins, and create search, because it's just like running YouTube or running Google search or optimizing for SEO. This is about being seen by search engines. And I'm pretty sure Pinterest is number 3 when it comes to search. So I don't have the exact stat, so please don't quote me on that if I'm incorrect, guys. But I'm pretty sure it goes Google, YouTube, Pinterest.
That's incredible. Yeah. And I know that Pinterest results can even show up in Google searches, which is just another reason to have a Pinterest that's super populated with those keywords, because you're then also taking advantage of Google.
Beautiful. Hey, Megan, for those who aren't here and have never seen Edgar before, or like Renee, who have been using Edgar but don't understand all the profiles, can we delve in and show people what profiles and what you can connect inside Meet Edgar? Because I think that's pretty powerful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Edgar does connect with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest, obviously here. So Facebook, groups and pages, LinkedIn, profile and pages. Instagram can be business or personal. We do Instagram with a push notification system of posting. So you load everything into Edgar here. Schedule works the exact same way. Then you do have to download our app, which if you do have an Edgar account, you can just find in our help center here by typing in the Instagram app if you go there. Yep. And then you'll get push notification reminders to post to Instagram there. So yeah, everything's done on a category-based system of posting within Meet Edgar. You add all of your content to Edgar, either manually with this add new content button up here. As we were saying before, you always want to amplify your message out to as many of your profiles as possible. So if it's appropriate to send to all of those accounts, absolutely feel free to assign a post to every single one of your accounts to give it the best chance and the most reach there. You're then always writing your post and saving it to your library. If you do have posts that you'd like to schedule, especially around this season with the holidays coming up, so that your feeds are still populated, but you don't have to worry about logging in on the holidays, Edgar does have a second way of scheduling that I do always like to bring up, and that is our manually scheduling posts. So if you have content that is not evergreen, so wouldn't be great to use on our evergreen schedule, next to this Save to Library button, you also have a drop-down arrow right here that you can click Set, Schedule, Send, and Save from. And this will give you the opportunity to put in a specific day and time when you want this post to go out. So this is a completely different way of scheduling than that weekly repeating schedule. The weekly repeating schedule, again, you want to use for your evergreen content, and it creates consistency where you can ask yourself, what category is going to support my followers' lifestyle at this time of day? And your feed can be really full of all of those great value-adding categories. And then you can sprinkle in these manually scheduled posts, like for your holidays, whether it's a fun, like for us, National Octopus Day or something, or like Happy New Year's Day, stuff like that. And you can always mark a post with this schedule of when this should go out. Under advanced settings, tell Edgar only use this once if it's a holiday post, and you can get all of that scheduled so you can enjoy your holidays and not have to worry about social media. A couple of other features that can be incredibly helpful, especially for content creators, are under this import tab. So we looked at how you can manually add your content into Edgar with this add new content here. But if you have a blog, or if you like to curate content from other people's blogs, this RSS feed feature we have is incredibly useful. So how this works is all you have to do is put your URL in here. So if I want to always share blog posts from Meet Edgar's blog, I put our URL of Meet Edgar in here and then click Find RSS feed. Edgar's going to say, great, there's an RSS feed connected. What category would you like these posts to be put into? What accounts should these posts have permission to go out to? So you're always assigning permissions there. And then you'll notice you can choose to either send posts directly to your library or to a pending content queue. So the reason this matters is because any RSS feed that you add here is checked every 24 hours. If a new post has been released to that blog or to that YouTube channel or to that podcast that you've added here within that 24-hour time frame, Edgar's automatically going to pull it over. Now, he'll either pull it over into your library or your pending queue, depending upon how you have that set up. So if you want the ability to approve, reject, or edit a post, you'll send it to the pending content queue, which is also in your library right here. You'll see what these pull over is just the title as well as the URL. So all I would need to do is approve this, reject it, or edit it if I wanted to add in some of my own thought leadership around why I'm sharing that post. So again, this makes it incredibly easy for you to never miss sharing out a blog post to your followers and to keep an eye on what's going on in your industry. So you can use this pending content as just a way to go through it, once a week, pick out a couple of the best articles from the best blogs and share those with your followers there.
Guys, what's really important about the pending content, if you're sharing to Facebook, is you actually want it to go to pending, because otherwise it doesn't put the text that's required for Facebook to go in as a link. So that's really important. So I would always choose, personally, just always choose pending content. Gives you a chance to look over it, because if you don't manually add text to Facebook, it's just got to go out as a link, and Facebook's not a big fan of that.
Yeah, so great point here. So the reason that all that's going to go out to Facebook, if this is connected to Facebook, is just the link preview, is because Facebook actually sees this RSS feed reader as automated content creation, which is against their term of service. So they allow automated scheduling, just not automated content creation. So you'll notice if I attach a Facebook account to a post that's been brought over by the RSS feed, I get a separate Facebook text box down here. Now, all you really have to do if you want is to copy and paste what Edgar has already written for you into that text box, and you're good to go. Facebook is like, okay, great, you've done something with this. But if you forget to do this, or if you don't do this, no worries. It's still going to make sense. It'll send out a link preview. It's not like it's just going to send out a blank post or something like that, but that is a really good pro tip for using that.
Yeah. And it's a pro tip for Facebook, because we want to keep the Facebook gods happy.
So true.
Okay, has anyone else got any other questions for us on the world of Edgar or marketing or Pinterest? Who's going to start some Pinterest marketing? That's what I'm keen to see.
Yeah, I can't wait.
I can't wait. I'm going into a Q&A session with my Marketing Circle members in about an hour, Megan. So I'm sure we're going to be discussing Pinterest strategy is how we do that. So that is going to be amazing. Thank you for joining us once again. It has been amazing to have you here. We've got our partner link in. There's no questions coming in either area. So I'm just going to update everyone with what we have coming up inside BBB for the next little while. And excuse me, guys, while I grab our skills page up and make sure that I am updating you with the most up-to-date stuff that we have coming up. We have our skills webinar next month, well, actually next week, on the 10th of November at 11 a.m. And that is with the lovely Tali from MeetFox, and we're going to be looking at how to use MeetFox within our area. So I'm just popping a link into the skills page now so you can find it there. Online challenge wise, we are done for the year. Our online challenges are finished for the year. That's just going to give me a bit of a break between November and December to come back and come on with some new online challenges. But we do have the 2021 Business Kickstart in November. There is one spot left for that in Melbourne with Clive and I, which is a 3-day intensive working on your brand, getting your marketing message right, getting your business goals right. And I have a photographer and videographer, Mick Russell, coming in with us. So we're going to take headshots of you all, and we're also going to work on two 90-minute videos. Obviously they're going, that's a good price. We're going to work on 2 90-second videos to help you promote your businesses and some evergreen content. So whatever your main content service offering or provider is, we're going to look at creating those 90-second videos so that you can be sharing that out consistently on social media. And you might have heard me mention the Blogging for Business retreat, which is where 5 lucky business owners get to spend a weekend with me in a beautiful country Victoria location called Trentham, where the food's great. We walk around 2 kilometres and get us around the whole town. And we get to spend 2 days working on your blog content. And we're going to look at your blog content from start to finish, what the formula is, the ideas that you have in your business, and taking it out of your head and actually writing posts. So I'll be there to help you and working with just 5 other people. So it's a nice small one. We'll be back in 2021 with lots more skills webinars, lots more opportunities for you to be able to learn, connect, network, and do. We are going to wrap up with next week's skills webinar, just so our team get a little bit of time off before we come back. Megan, thank you. There is so much I know in the world of Meet Edgar that we're going to need to talk again sometime next year and catch up with everyone. And I definitely would love to invite you into our course creators circle so we can look at, automation marketing for course creators and seeing how that sort of stuff works as well. So that would be cool.
Oh my gosh, I would be honored. Thank you so much for your community today. It's always fun chatting with you guys.
Not a problem, guys. Thank you very much for turning up. We will see you same time next week for the final skills webinar of 2021. Bye, guys.